everybody. Wow, this is weird. My first time speaking to an almost empty room. But you know what I'm doing? I'm picturing your faces. I see Johnny. I see Bonnie. I see Ann, Rich, Alex. I'm not going to name you all, so don't worry. Pat, Hopeton, Joanne, thank you. Thank you so much for all of you to be with us here online as we continue our mission of inspiring personal transformation. It's so important right now. What a couple weeks we've had. Oh my gosh. I've had the flu the last couple of weeks, so it's really weird having the flu when a big virus like this is going around and everyone thinking, oh, have you been tested? Have you been tested? I didn't have the symptoms for COVID-19, so no, I have not been tested, but I feel much better today, so I'm glad to be with you here today. Oh. So we've been working with the 4 agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And Scott's done a beautiful job of talking about the first 3 agreements. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take things personally. Don't make assumptions. And today we're going to talk about the 4th agreement, which is always do your best. This can be quite challenging at times like this. And so I titled the talk, Always Do Your Best, Even Now, but I think I want to cross out even and say especially now. Especially now. We're being invited to do our best. And our best changes from day to day, from moment to moment. Our best is always changing. Don Miguel says this, under any circumstance, always do your best, no more and no less. But keep in mind that your best is never going to be the same from one moment to the next. Everything is alive and changing all the time, so your best will sometimes be high quality, and other times it will not be so good. Your best will depend on whether you are feeling wonderful and happy, or upset, angry, or jealous. Our best is always changing. My best, certainly, the last couple of weeks hasn't been up to the quality that I would like it to be. Sometimes my best was just taking a shower or changing my clothes or getting off the couch. But we're always being invited to do our best, because if we don't do our best, we can't do the other 3 agreements. The other 3 agreements require that we do our best. We're not always going to be impeccable with our word, but we can do our best. We're not always going to not take things personally or not make assumptions, but we can do our best. This has been a big interrupt in our lives. Huge. I don't think any of us have ever experienced anything like this. And there can be a real tendency to say, why is this happening? Why are we being forced to cancel our events, to not go on the trips that we want to go on, to be apart from our family and our friends? But I think the more important question is not why. Why is this happening? We don't know. It doesn't help us to blame anyone. The more important question is, how do we want to show up? How do we want to be during this time? This offers us a great opportunity to stretch ourselves in finding new ways to connect, in finding new ways to spend our time. Thank goodness we have the technology in place already that we can connect. Can you imagine living in the year 1918 when they had none of this? When the Spanish flu went around and killed millions of people? We have the technology to connect with people. There is a global solidarity going on right now, that we're all seeing harming each other in different ways. This virus doesn't care about what race we are, about our economic status, what sex we are. It doesn't care. We're all in this together. None of us are immune to it. So oneness, if we can see it that way, if we can see through a spiritual lens and see that we are being given an opportunity, painful though it may be or feel to us, to stretch ourselves, to grow, to discern what's important to us, who's important to us, to find new ways of connecting and reaching out. We can be present in ways we've never been present before. We don't know how it will unfold. We don't know what's going to happen in the months to come. Maybe it was time for us all to slow down. Maybe it was time for us to spend more time on our spiritual journeys. Spend more time with our immediate families. Spend more time learning something new. We don't know. And it brings up a lot of feelings in all of us. Certainly brings up a lot of feelings. So I want to invite you on Facebook, if you're live right now, just share one word. What emotion, what feeling are you predominantly experiencing right now? Share it on Facebook, and I'm going to check it out in a couple minutes. But share that. Acknowledge it. It doesn't mean we have to be stuck right there, but we can see how we're in this together, that a lot of us are feeling a lot of the same things. So don't judge it. Just let it be. When people are in a crisis, they're more willing to try something new. They're more willing to take a risk. And we're still in the season for nonviolence, and the Association for Global New Thought website had a video on there. I didn't watch the video, but I read the story about it. It was called The Dama Brothers. And the Dama Brothers is a story about prisoners at the Donaldson Correctional Facility in Alabama, where the most violent criminals who have no chance of parole live. And several years ago, they started doing some meditation with them. They did a meditation called Vipassana. I hope I said that right. Vipassana, which coincidentally, Vipassana meditation is literally about seeing, special seeing the truth of what we are, seeing our true reality. And as they were doing these meditations, these meditational retreats in the correctional facility, they noticed that the people that participated, the men that participated, it really affected them. They had improved physiological and psychological well-being. They had a decrease in anger and distress. They had a 20% reduction in institutional infractions and segregation time. Men who have no chance of parole started to feel free. One of the prisoners, named Edward Johnson, said this: "On the third day of meditation, I began to feel calm. And then and there, for the first time in my life, I was really ready to deal with me." A lot of guys was afraid to deal with Big Ed, and now I was ready to take him on right there on that meditation mat. It takes practice. And so during this time of crisis, it takes practice. We can practice staying calm, staying centered, staying with that highest version of ourselves, doing our best. No more, no less, but doing our best. And when we are in a state of fear or anxiety or overwhelm or whatever we're feeling, it's really hard to do our best. So we don't want to stay stuck there. We just see, oh, I'm getting things I did not expect. I'm getting hope and grateful. Uncertainty, sadness, love, curiosity, courage, inspired. It's really weird seeing me on the screen here while I'm reading. Fear, yeah. There's a lot of fear. We as human beings don't do too well with uncertainty. We like to know what's going on. The Buddhists call it ego clinging. We like to cling to what we know, cling to who we are. And we don't like when the ground beneath us is moving too much. It's a real opportunity for us to acknowledge what we're feeling, to investigate what we're feeling, and to nurture ourselves. And it takes a practice of staying calm. Don Miguel Ruiz says this: if you do your best always, over and over again, you will become a master of transformation. Practice makes the master. By doing your best, you become a master. Everything you have ever learned, you have learned through repetition. Action is what makes the difference. Action. One of our unity principles is putting these practices into action, giving them hands and feet. And we have an opportunity to do that right now. That when we find ourselves in a place of fear, when we find ourselves in a place of overwhelm or anxiety or just this unknowing, uncertainty, as some of you listed, that we can replace that. We acknowledge it. We don't deny that we're feeling that, but we can replace it with words of truth. We can replace it with times of quiet and meditation. I want to invite you to write a statement in the Facebook chat box. What affirmation or what words of truth do you use when you're feeling fearful? When you're feeling overwhelmed? What do you do? What do you use? Kevin and I watched A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood last week with Tom Hanks, and it's the story, of course, of Mr. Rogers, Fred Rogers. It's a great movie. In the movie, he talks about how we're all human. The other character, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head, asked him, are you perfect? It must have been hard to grow up with a dad like you, because you're so perfect. And he said, no. Mr. Rogers said, I'm not perfect. There are times when I get angry, and there are things that I do when I'm in that state to help me, and I practice it. He goes for a swim, or he gets on the piano and just pounds on the low notes. And we see him do it at the end of the movie, showing us that he's human, that we're all human. Sometimes our best requires us to at least acknowledge that we're in that place. I like to get outside. I like to go for a run. That I haven't been able to work out in the last almost 3 weeks, feeling that, inside. But we all need to practice. Practice. I'm going to read one of these, and I'm not choosing one over all of you, I'm just choosing one because it's right here. We have an inner strength beyond what we know. We have an inner strength beyond what we know. Let's all say that together. We have an inner strength beyond what we know. Now, I heard a few people because there's only a handful of us here, but in this technology age, I know you are all saying it. We have an inner strength. We have that inner strength. It's something we can do. We can stay focused on that whenever we get to that place, when we feel like we can't do our best. What things are you doing to help yourself through this time? What things are you working on? Let me tell you some things we're doing here at Columbine, because this has obviously changed our world completely. We're going to have Zelloship, yes, with a Z, Zelloship at 12:15 today. We invite you to come on Zoom with us and connect with each other, and we'll be breaking you out into different groups randomly so you can connect with each other. It's at 12:15, and the link is in our calendar on our website. It's also in your e-bulletin that we sent out this morning. So join us for Zelloship. We're going to have a Columbine virtual cafe. There's a lot of talk about the CDC. How about talking about the CVC, the Columbine virtual cafe? We're going to do that on Wednesday, the next 4 Wednesdays. Janice is live on Facebook with music Monday through Friday at 10 o'clock. Join her in song, uplifting, to hear that. We're still going to have our small groups. We have a small group program. It's going to start the week of April 19th, and we're going to do it all through Zoom. We want you to feel connected. We love being together as a community. And this is a way that we can still be together and be safe and not endanger our health. We did a practice run, the staff and Stuart and Kevin were on there, Julia, our board president, and on Friday night, and it was really fun. It was really fun to see everybody and to connect. It felt like we were together. We were together, virtually. We want to keep you connected. We don't want you to forget how much you love each other. So one thing you could do is get to know the Zoom app. Get to know it so when we have a gathering, you're not struggling through using the app. It's really simple, and there's a lot of webinars on the Zoom site, zoom.us. Get familiar with it. It doesn't cost anything. You know, it's times like these where we really put our principles to the test. They can make us stronger. Unity's third principle is our thoughts determine how we experience life. What thoughts are you thinking right now? And how is that playing out in your world? They say in times of crisis that people's true colors come out. And I don't mean hair roots, but that'll happen. We have an opportunity to do our best, to reach out. We've got a group of people that are calling everyone in our database, reaching out, finding out what support you need. And we want to encourage you to email us if there's something we can do to support you. These are incredible times. We need to do our best and let God do the rest. Not a God out there, even though I believe the God is everywhere, but the God within. highest version of ourselves will take care of the rest when we do our best. We can't control the outer, but we can certainly control the inner. There's a scripture from the book of Matthew, chapter 11, verse 28 to 30. It says, "Come to me, all you that are weary and are carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." In the time of Jesus, the yoke was a piece of wood that connected two ox together as they worked the fields. And usually they would put a weaker one with a stronger one, or a younger one with an older one, so that they could work together, so that they could encourage each other, so they could, the younger one with the energy and the older one with the wisdom. We're being called to do that now. We're being called to help each other. We're being called to connect with that inner God first, and then reach out. The power within us is much greater than the circumstances before us. And any of you who are familiar with the 12 powers, I've been focusing on this week. A friend of mine made these prayer beads for me, and there are 12 of them, and they're in the different colors that represent each of the 12 powers. I invite you to use something that is sacred to you. We got to keep reminding ourselves. We have to keep practicing to do our best. It's so important. We have so much more power in us than we ever use, than we ever claim. But can we trust that right now? Do you trust it? Do you trust God right now? Do you trust that Spirit is here in the midst of all this? I know I do. In this crisis, we can do our best for ourselves and for each other. And it's the biggest sign that we're living in a civilized, loving world. Carolyn Richardson shared a story with Scott and I this week that she found on Facebook. It's actually from a book by Dr. Ira Byock. And the book's called The Best Care Possible. But he talks about the anthropologist Margaret Mead, who was asked, what is a sign that there was civilization? What's one of the earliest signs? Thinking that it would be clay pots or dishes or something like that. And Margaret Mead said the earliest sign of civilization goes back 15,000 years ago when we dug up some bones and saw a femur, the big thigh bone, that was healed. This meant that this person had to be cared for. Back then, if an animal broke a leg, its life was doomed. It would become food for something else. And so seeing a femur healed meant that somebody got that person to safety. Somebody made sure that person was fed and had water. And somebody tended to the wound to help it heal. And that's a sign that there's civilization. We're seeing that now. We're seeing people getting groceries for each other and leaving them on the front door, doing it in a safe way. We're seeing people reach out in different ways. I know I've been reaching out to my family and some friends much more. I've really stepped up my game. Because we need each other. We need each other to survive, as the song said. We need each other. And from this inactivity going on in the world, many of you probably have seen the the YouTubes or the pictures, there's lots of articles about that the earth is healing, that there's less pollution in the air in China. If you can see the pictures prior to them being isolated or being quarantined and after, and the air quality is truly changed. The waters in Venice are clearer. There's fish swimming. You can see fish swimming in the waters again. You can see swans have come back. So why is this happening? We don't know. We don't know why it's happening, but how do we want to show up in the midst of it? How do we want to be? Lee Ebnar sent me a poem that she found on Facebook, and actually this was written by Kitty O'Meara, and it went viral. Kitty is retired. She worked in palliative care, and she didn't know what she could do with this time, being quarantined, being isolated, and her husband said, write. That's what you do, write. And so she wrote this poem, and she posted it on Facebook, and her friends, people started resonating with it, and they started sharing it, and it went viral, and she can't even believe it. She said she and her husband have been laughing about, there was an interview with her in Oprah magazine, and this is the poem. And the people stayed home and read books and listened and rested and exercised and made art and played games and learned new ways of being, and were still and listened more deeply. Some meditated, some prayed, some danced, some met their shadows, and the people began to think differently. And the people healed. And in the absence of people living in ignorant, dangerous, mindless, and heartless ways, the earth began to heal. And when the danger passed and the people joined together again, they grieved their losses and made new choices and dreamed new dreams and created new ways to live and heal the earth fully as they had been healed. This is one person's vision of how this might unfold. It's a vision of us doing our best, of becoming the embodiment of spirit, of taking this time and not wasting this time. And I'm all for Netflix and TV and entertainment, but also spending the time doing things that matter, doing things that are important, doing our best version of ourselves. We have it within us. We have the capacity. We can embody God. I wish you all health, safety, wellness. And we're going to work our way into meditation now. I invite you to, you might be tempted, be tempted to refill your coffee cup right now, to use the bathroom, to do something else, but I really encourage you to keep this time sacred. Spend this time in meditation. Let this time be just for you. And you can focus on the candle. I'm going to move out of the way. You can focus on the candle if you don't want to close your eyes. Knowing that you are the light of the world, that you carry that light with you no matter where you go.